Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto ran away from Konaha 6 years ago and became Emperor Lion of the West Part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. The enormous crowd of people has amassed at one of the main central places of Numenor City, citizens, travelers, soldiers, merchants, priests and more. All of them had come in here to witness the justice being done and to bear witness to a foul schemer that had tried to manipulate their beloved emperor, and now was to face the executioner's blade. Rumors of what had happened in the Imperial Palace had spread like dragon fire in a stormy wind, and in a matter of a day, half the empire knew what had happened, along with greatly exaggerated versions. Some of the subjects of the emperor and empress even sent their official representatives to see what had happened, like Gilneas with their renowned hero, Darius Crowley, and Dalaran with their archmage Madana, along with already present representatives from all over the empire. All of them were situated at the special gallery, shared by some of the members of Imperial family, Emperor Naruto himself, Emperor's Hand Gabriel and his wife Verisa, Hanabi Pendragon with her father Hiashi Hyuga, and a good portion of the Imperial court. Near Naruto personally stood Neji, as always at his side, Narumi, Kurenai, with her daughter enjoying the company of the Empress, Kaoru Uzumaki and finally, his own mother, Kushina Uzumaki, joined to her son and daughter and standing firmly by their side, with her mind fully set and decision made, for the first time fully in 15 long years. Her talk with Narumi and Kaoru had not been a pleasant one, but it did reveal to them all many things, and let Kushina be herself once again. Flashback. Yesterday. Restricted interrogation room of Twilight section of prison. Narumi was sitting in the chair at the table, with her aunt and head of clan Uzumaki, Kaoru Uzumaki, right at her left side. The two women of Uzumaki origin knew of each other well, thanks to Naruto and his help to reconnect Narumi with the real Uzumaki clan and its true traditions and ways. Though it had taken some time and persuasion, Kaoru herself has come to see in Narumi not just Kushina's child, a child of a traitor, but a true Uzumaki and a member of her own family, even a daughter of her own at times. Kaoru had always wanted Narumi to completely let go of the elemental nations, to come fully into the West and live there, offering her a place at her side and within her family, but until yesterday, Narumi had refused, doing her duty for Naruto. Fortunately enough, Narumi was now fully ready to be a part of the real Uzumaki clan, which had brought great joy to her aunt, but when she asked her for help and explained the nature of that help, Kaoru immediately grew skeptical and doubtful. When Clan Uzumaki had migrated to the west, they were greeted by someone they least expected, Clan Uchiha of the West, who had offered them part of their own lands, help and resources to start all over, anew. Before long, Clan Uzumaki, though just half of its original numbers, has settled in and thrived in relative safety and with the alliance with Clan Uchiha of the West, and Kaoru's father had managed to solidify that alliance by marrying Kaoru to Makoto Uchiha, a match that had proven to be a happy one for both them and the clans. For decades clans had thrived together, fending off against the aggressors from the east and against the Ironborn raiders from the north. Until Naruto came, for Kaoru, to see her own sister's son, to hear his tale and what had happened to him, was a great shock. Her own older sister had sacrificed her own son for the other two and Kyuubi's power, made him a pawn. Despite what many of the Easterners may think, Clan Uzumaki wasn't such a loyal friend to Konaha, especially after learning of the fate of Mito Uzumaki and how she was used as a living prison for Kyuubi. They had helped with founding of Konaha, were among its founding clans, but instead of respect and honor, they received only horse shit, and their members only were later used as the tools for Konaha and its ambitions. Gradually, as Konaha fought and dragged Uzumaki through one war after another, the trust and friendship had soured to the point that Uzumaki were ready to break away from Konaha completely, and would have done so, had Kiri, Iwa and Kumo not attacked them in force, right after Konaha had received the next host for Kyuubi in form of Kushina. Shingen Uzumaki, father of Kaoru and Kushina and a head of Uzumaki clan, figured that Konoha was already done with them and decided to wipe them out through the hands of their enemies. Needless to say, they failed and Uzumaki had been able to get away, but at a great cost. Kaoru, as well as all of Uzumaki and Uchiha, hated Konoha with passion, but it was nor hatred that brought them to Naruto as his allies and later most loyal subjects. It was his will, inner strength and resolve to unite this land into one, a passion that burned hotter than flames of dragons. Kaoru and Makoto had pledged their clans and forces to Naruto and his cause, and when he did, uniting this land under one banner and one rule, and Uzumaki with Uchiha continued their loyal service to him. And while Kaoru had seen Naruto as nothing short of her own son, Kushina was an entirely different matter to her, as she despised and even hated her own older sister, and after Kaoru had heard of what had happened to Narumi, head of the Uzumaki, really wished that Sasuke Uchiha was killed off, preferably by her. But still, despite everything that had happened, Narumi wanted to have her mother here with her and she managed to enlist Kaoru to convince her. Kaoru did not want any part in this, but after some talk with Narumi and later on Naruto, she agreed. She wasn't a fan of her sister, that is for sure, but she agreed with Naruto's conditions for Kushina's stay in here. Door inside opened up and Anko walked through with two watchers, who led Kushina, chained up and looking ragged up, but generally okay. It was a secured mystery, what watchers used in their interrogations and how they could break people, and their victims could never tell what was done to them. Kushina had already been interrogated, with healers working their magic on her to heal it, though the memories of the interrogation did remain within her. As Anko and watchers left the room, but not before putting a key on the table, near Kaoru. After that, Kushina looked at her daughter, well and dressed nicely, as well as her sister, before she spoke up. Narumi, are you alright? Your father and we haven't heard a thing about you since they took you away. We were worried and had thought. Kushina looked at the both for a moment, before Narumi spoke up. I am alright, mother. Better than I had been for the past 8 years. Narumi offered her mother a seat, which Kushina accepted, though confused at her words. You should know that yesterday I and Kurenai were taken to see Naruto. He has spoken to you. Have you told him that we had nothing to do with it, that Minato? Kushina was already going into a ramble, before Kaoru shut her. Be quiet, sister, because what we have to say to you is more important to you than you can even think. Kaoru stated to her with coldness. You and your husband may not know it, but His Imperial Majesty has been keeping a very close eye on what has been going on in the East, especially in Konoha. And yes, it was he who had granted home and bright future to those that your husband saw as enemies within his village's walls. And he has extended the same offer to Kurenai Yuhi with her child, and to my niece Narumi here. Kushina looked shocked when she heard this, and she looked at her daughter in shock. Narumi, please tell me that you didn't. I have accepted it, mother. Narumi confirmed Kushina's worst fear. Naruto, my real brother, he had offered me a place in here over 2 years ago, and at first me and Kurenai had not accepted it, but now, after years and years of torment and being a pawn in father's hands, I have had it, mom. Brutal beatings, endless missions, constant danger for life, loveless marriage, being a sacrifice to keep at bay the monster. I can't go on like that any longer. Narumi, what are you saying? I know that what Sasuke had done to you was horrible, and I understand you would want a divorce, but your father and I have calmed down and talked about it all, and we believe that you should first wait and consider it all with us. And not only that, you have sworn yourself to Konoha and no Uzumaki had forsaken Konoha, and you are its shinobi. Not to mention, what about Menma, father, and me? Would you really abandon your real family? No, this isn't right, this isn't you. It must be Naruto, trying to separate us and, Kushina was already starting ramble at a half-crazed pace, before Narumi, having heard enough, rose up and slapped her mother, hard, grabbing her by shoulders and making her look her in the eye. Mother, do you even hear what you are saying? Just yesterday, you were ready to tear out my father's throat for what he had done with Naruto, and now, what in bloody hell is wrong with you? Exclamation mark. Just 1 minute you are acting like a real Uzumaki should've, and now you are a damned father's fangirl, ready to stand up on your legs like a loyal dog. Narumi shouted at her in shock, with Kushina looking at her in similar shock. Hell, you act just like when you had heard me tell you what that bastard Uchiha had done to me, when back in the cell. What is wrong with you, mother? Nothing is wrong with me, Narumi. I am well, and Naruto is wrong. He is trying to divide us, when he should be helping our family and his father, and not do all this. And Kushina continued to ramble on like half crazy, with Narumi looking at her with fear and shock. Kaoru also listened to it all, and the more she heard Kushina speak, the more she began to suspect that something else was also in play here. Being an Uzumaki and having married to head of Uchiha, Kaoru had learned to easily suspect and discover the subterfuge, lies and manipulations. And now her inner sense was telling her that Kushina wasn't in the clearest state of mind. Or, more appropriately, she is not using her own mind right now. Rising up from her seat, she instantly placed a paralyzing seal upon Kushina, stopping her in track, before walked behind her and lifted up her red hair, looking at her neck. What Kaoru saw there made her blood boil, as she spoke up with hatred. That fucking bastard Minato, of course I should have known that something like that was in play here, Kaoru said with hatred, surprising Narumi. Narumi, come here, dear. There is the answer to the madness that befell my sister. Narumi came in and looked at what Kaoru saw there. Is that a memory alteration seal? Narumi looked at the small seal, which Narumi was able to identify as one, having studied those with Kushina and her father. But it looks strangely altered and different, like it was made for a different purpose, and it seems to have been made rashly. Correct, my dear. This isn't a memory alteration seal, but rather an enslavement seal, a modified and more advanced version of the former seal, developed by one of Uzumaki clan. The seal itself was deemed to be too dangerous and forsaken from usage, but some among us know of it, and I suspect that Kushina knew of it as well and told Minato of it. Kaoru told Narumi. This seal acts directly upon the person's mind, completely nullifying its will and carefully implanting into them a mindset of a completely submissive and controlled person. With this thing on, you can make a person think and believe everything you want, but there is a downside to it. The seal is not permanent and the will of the user will eventually overcome the seal's programming, releasing a person from the control, and if Kushina was anything like she used to be in the past, then it doesn't surprise me that this seal is looking like it is. It wasn't rushed, Narumi, but remade, at least 10 times, and the last time it was remade was just yesterday. Minato, you fucking bastard. Narumi looked in shock at her mother, and now she had realized that all this inaptitude, loss of will and power, as well as obedience to father, all of it was made by her father, who probably could not stand the idea of Kushina straying away from him and had decided to do everything in his power to keep her in check. It also provided Narumi with some answers, most prominent being why mother never left father after learning of what he had done all those years ago with Naruto, as well as many more arguments on this subject that they had, plus why she acted so dually with her situation with Sasuke. To think that her own father had done such a thing, and not just once, but many times on her. Narumi shook her head in shame, as the tears were starting to come out of her eyes, as she turned to her aunt. Aunt Kaoru, please, free her. After all that he has done, what Konaha had done, I can't just. I know, Narumi. And I will. Kaoru's voice wasn't a steel cold or laced with anger, but with sadness and regret, as she easily dispelled and destroyed the seal, with Kushina falling in her sister's arms. Easy, easy, Kushina. The seal has been upon your mind for over 14 years now, just take your time, sister. Kushina's frame stopped shaking, as like a fog had lifted off of her mind, clearing up everything and showing the poor woman all that has happened to her and her family. And the realization of all the sins that she had committed, the betrayals, treachery and more, it had nearly broke Kushina Uzumaki, as tears began to pour out of her eyes, as she remembered everything, loss of Naruto, revelation of him living and how Minato stopped her from going to him, her compliance and how she simply followed him, how she refused to believe her daughter, when every fiber of her being screamed at her to help her. Her entire life, her whole adulthood, Kushina had been nothing more but a pawn in someone's game and others' hands, either because of her status or because of Kyuubi, and Minato destroyed her will, made her his own doll to use, all because he did not wish to see their family fall apart. Kushina had risen up on her own feet, still supported by her sister a little bit, but as the strength returned to her and tears began to fall down, her inner spirit, her will and determination, all of it had finally began to return to her. And with it all, her former haze of love for Minato and Menma had washed away, with anger and fury coming down upon it all, as her heart turned away from them and towards whom she had betrayed for so long, Naruto and Narumi. Minato had used her, made her his slave and used her as a symbol for his own cause. In Menma, he was far too much like his father now, only even more arrogant and pompous. She failed him like a mother, there was no denying it, and she failed all of her children, especially Naruto and Narumi. Her only hopes now were that they would be able to even forgive her for all she had done to them. Kushina looked at her daughter's crying form, with Kaoru unshackling her sister, which pushed Kushina to immediately go to her daughter and embrace her tightly and warmly, like a mother should, crying to her. Narumi, my sweet little daughter, I am sorry, I am so sorry, what have I done to you and Naruto, how weak I was, my sweet little girl, if only I was smarter and stronger, Kushina cried on her daughter's shoulder, before she separated from her and looked at a softer-looking Kaoru. Sister, I. Say nothing more, Kushina. Kaoru stopped her. With all that had happened between Uzumaki and Konaha, with how they had abused us, and what Minato did, and how you were on their side at the start, it will take time for me to accept you back, Kushina. Why yes, I understand it. Kushina said to her, wiping away her tears. My whole clan, I had betrayed them, and for what? Years and years of abuse and suffering, and then later on, I should have listened to father from the start, not been so trusting to that monkey bastard, Naruto, my son. Oh, what have I done to him? Mom, not all is lost. Narumi said to Kushina, drawing her attention. Naruto offered me and Kurenai a place here, a chance to start anew. And I have asked him to extend this proposal to you as well. Kushina looked in shock at her daughter and sister, who continued. Don't get your hopes up, Kushina. Naruto still holds the grudge for all that had happened with him, and he blames you for it. But, seeing what we had discovered here, we'll make sure to tell him everything. It will ease the tensions between you two, but you will still need to find a way to your son's heart. Kaoru told her sister. He is willing to let you stay in the Empire, and when he hears of what Minato did to you, he is sure to soften up to you, but, should you betray his trust and remain loyal to Konaha, he will not be merciful. He has lost his wife to traitors, and treason is one thing he would never forgive. No, I understand. Kushina understood them, looking at Narumi. My poor little girl, Minato and others, they've abused our clan for far too long. I'll be fucking damned if I ever let Konaha dictate me how to live. I've betrayed my family and my children for far too long, and I won't do it ever again. Tell Naruto that I will do anything and everything to win his trust to me, and that I want someone examine me and my body. Narumi and Kaoru looked at her confused. After all that had happened, I want to be bloody sure that there is nothing on me that Minato or his frog pervert master had placed on me or my mind. I will not betray my children, willingly or not, never. Kaoru nodded to her, with Narumi smiling to her. Now this sounds like Kushina Uzumaki I knew once. Don't worry, we'll take of it all, and afterwards, all you'll need to worry about is making up to your son, Kushina. Kaoru assured her. And make up to him I will, Kaoru. You can count on it. Kushina had thought to herself with a determination of a true Uzumaki. End of flashback. When Naruto had heard all the details about what had happened to his mother and what Minato had done to her, he just as shocked as he was infuriated and disgusted with Minato. To use Kushina like a pawn in his games, to enslave her in such a manner and make her obedient, just because of her finding out the truth about him, the first impulse that Naruto had after hearing it all was to have Minato beheaded, but he had withheld from it, as it would serve to immediately start up a conflict between his empire and Hai no Kuni, a conflict that he wanted to avoid for now. Dealing with Danzo was justified, as it was well proven that he acted of his own behest and with Konaha and Daimyo having no part in it. Still, this has served well to Naruto, as it put Konaha in a really vulnerable position before him, and allowed him to dictate the terms of their release, which were pretty simple, yet humiliating to them. Relinquish all charges against the people of Konaha that Naruto harbors in Empire, and let Narumi, Kurenai, Mirai and Kushina go. Minato had wanted to protest, but after witnessing the Watchers and their interrogation, as well as being directly told that it was either this, or Naruto will have all of Konoha destroyed within a fortnight, Minato decided to comply, though reluctantly. Hokage and his group were also near the Imperial Gallery, with all of them looking ragged, weak and miserable, especially Sasuke Uchiha and his wife Sakura. Sasuke had not been interrogated, no, he was directly tortured by the Watchers. There was a clear and firm differentiation between interrogation and torture, and while most of Konoha's delegation were interrogated, which was in many cases worse than direct torture by Konoha specialists, Sasuke and Danzo were tortured, which was a whole different and new level from Watchers' interrogation. His frame was now thinner, covered in scars, and his skin seemed paler, with his hair now having far more gray in them, and it even seemed like he was barely standing. And as for Sakura, her head was completely gray after seeing all that has been done to Sasuke. Her hands were permanently damaged and she could not even move her fingers properly, and her tongue was gone as well, rendering Sakura completely and utterly broken, just as Naruto had wanted. The gates of the prison opened up and from there came a squad of 12 Watchers, led by a night elf woman in armor and black cloak, completely covering her frame. They were escorting Danzo Shimura, with one hand, one eye and completely deprived of his powers. He was no longer the symbol of dark might of Konoha, but just a feeble, broke old man without anything to call his own, and his dreams were shattered completely. All he now could do is accept his death with dignity. He was led to the execution podium, as a big, near-giant orc, with tusks of a great beast on his shoulders and black pants as his garments and with a big, one-sided great axe, with fangs on the opposite to the blade side. He was completely bald, with yellow eyes, and looking as menacing as it could be. He was a son of one of Orc's chieftains, sent in here to represent the voice of Orcs alongside some of his brethren, along with serving as one of royal guards to Naruto. He not always liked to wear his armor, but he did so, as Garrosh Hellscream, son of Grom Hellscream, always did his duty, and now it was to execute this cur. He placed his axe near his bent victim, as Gabriel Windrunner addressed the people of the city. Good people of Numenor, the man you see before all of you has come to our lands as an ambassador and herald of his lord, Daimyo of Land of Fire. However, instead of good grace and humbleness, he came with deceit and spite. He and his comrades here had conspired to turn our emperor away from our partners and friends, to make us go back on our trust to those we are loyal to. Their schemes have been found out, but this man had the gall to use a visual jutsu, that would enslave all on whom it was casted down. The people immediately roared in indignation and fury, before Naruto silenced them personally, raising his hand and calming them. Fear not, good people, for I stand here before you, unharmed and as strong as ever. I know that news of this have spread far and wide, but let me make this crystal to all my loyal subjects and my enemies, hidden and known, that the Emperor Naruto Pendragon stands here before his people, and that he will never succumb to any sorcery or schemes that intend to poison my mind. The crowd cheered for their emperor. And this man, this warmonger and deceiving liar, shall now face what all of his kind deserve, justice and retribution for their sins. With that said, Naruto looked right in Garrosh's eyes, giving him a curt nod, to which Orc grinned in joy, as he grabbed his axe and easily brought it upwards for the swing. Without even the right of the last word, Garrosh's axe went right down for Danzo's neck. A gory howl sounded the square, as Orc's weapon severed the head from the body of Danzo, ending his life in a single swing of the blade and putting an end to any and all of his schemes that he might have had. Konoha looked in mortified expression at all this, while Naruto and his group were already leaving the gallery and moving inside towards the palace. At Naruto's side came Hiashi, who had aged and no longer projected the look of a stern and cold head of Hyuga clan, but was now a man of softer heart and soul, living the life of peace and watching from sidelines with satisfaction how his clansmen had went away from their ways of war and integrated into peace, along with raising his granddaughters. Hanabi joined them as well, as they began to talk. I had always considered Danzo to be a main threat to the security and prosperity of Konoha, despite what he had claimed. His views on others and methods were nothing short of suicidal, in my opinion. Hiashi noted out to Naruto, who listened to him. Not to mention his root Anbu and all those many schemes he pulled of, with Uchiha in particular, the man would have been the end of Konoha, had he been made a Hokage. Yet, those same views and ideals of his were shared by many. Including the current Hokage, Naruto nearly spit that word out. With the way things are in the East, it wouldn't surprise me if we were forced to sail there and put an end to Land of Fire's world conquest. Great famine had hit them very hard and delayed any conflict at least for 5, maybe even 7 years, but still that war is coming, and Minato will be the one to bring it. I can see what troubles you. If Konoha wins those wars and subjugates the Northern Alliance, there will be only minor lands to take and the Numenor Empire here to take. Hiashi deduced. I can understand why you want to avoid the war, Naruto. None out here have fought and bled as much for this empire as you have, to bring peace and prosperity to this war-torn land. However, as the old saying goes, if you want peace, be ready for war. Naruto ended for Hiashi. This was the first thing I learned as king of Numenor Kingdom all those years ago, and this has saved me from having Angmar and Lordaeron pillaged and destroyed by Robert Baratheon. I have no illusions that peace will last forever, Hiashi, but I will not declare war unless there is a good reason to do so. First order of business now would be stabilization of Westerosi kingdoms and securing our borders with ogres, along with securing our sea lines with Iron Isles. Yes, that does seem to be more urgent matters to attend to. Hiashi agreed with him, as they all had entered the palace grounds. Now then, I had been meaning to ask, if your Imperial Majesty and your dear family would be willing to visit my manse, for a respite from the city. It has been quite a while since I saw Himawari and Shuri, along with the rest of your children, and in my age, you wouldn't know when it would be your last day. Father, again with your usual song. Hanabi looked at him accusingly, while Naruto simply chuckled with Hiashi. I won't hear any of this talk, are we clear? Ever again, and yes, I believe that we will do so, and children will be happy to get out of city for a few days. Hanabi looked at Naruto, who only nodded at this one with a smile. Now, mind telling me what shall be done with Konoha's delegation and how should I handle them? I am due to meet with them in an hour, so what is your decision on this matter? The same as it had been, Hanabi. Tell them that they will depart for their continent in 2 days and that I will hear no more of it. If they wish to come again, they are welcome to do so on the anniversary tournament of unification in 7 months' time from now. Naruto surprised Hanabi with this decision. Personally, I would like not to have any more works with them, but Semiramis insisted on this. She would not tell me why, but knowing her, it is best I sometimes not ask for answers on questions that will be answered in due time, as she likes to tell me. Naruto's group began to disperse through the palace, and soon enough he was left alone for a bit, as he headed towards the gardens, deciding to have a little bit of personal time, with Neji being dismissed by him for a time. It did not take him long to reach them, but once he got there, he saw something that brought a smile to his face. His eldest daughter, a small copy of Hinata, Himawari, was playing around with younger boy, her half-brother, who inherited both the looks of his father and mother. Much like Naruto, he had a similar shaped face, but it was more gracious and elven, with his eyes brighter blue and glow, along with elongated ears, and lighter tone of his blonde hair. He was Naruto's fourth child, and his second son, born from a union with his high elf consort, Kirin Pendragon Windrunner, who was actually supposed to be with his mother visiting her homeland of Quel'Thalas. Smiling, Naruto stepped closer and spoke up in a bit of a playful tone. Do my eyes deceive me, or is it my small ranger I see trying to kidnap his sister? Both Himawari and Kirin turned to face Naruto, smiling to him. Papa. Both of them ran to him and hugged him, with Naruto hugging both of them, while kissing his daughter's cheek. Now, Kirin, while I am very happy to see you playing with your older sister, what are you doing in here, young man? Should you not be with your mother in Quel'Thalas, and if so, how come are you here and you two are playing with any adults watching over you? Naruto asked of his son, though he probably knew the answer to those questions, and he knew that at least 5 watchers were watching over the kids. Mama said that you were not well, Papa, and she wanted to come here really fast, so we stepped through magic gates and came here. Kirin explained to his father. And we are not alone. Mama would never even think about leaving her son and his sister unsupervised. Voiced an elegant, beautiful, yet a little bit strict voice of Kirin's mother, making Naruto stand up and turn to face her. Before Naruto stood a tall, slender beauty of a woman, very closely resembling Verisa, but with blonde bright hair, dressed in green and black, with a blue marking over her left eye. She once was in Still Quel'Thala's Ranger General, who had originally began as an enemy of Naruto, when he moved towards Dundane with his forces, intending to make peace and alliance with High Elves. The conflict between elven and human kingdoms raged for many centuries and it was high time that Naruto made peace, but before that, he would have to fight a civil war between the ruling Sunstrider dynasty and House Windrunner that risen against them in Dundane. Having supported Windrunner faction, Naruto helped install peace and prosperity by letting a more modern and amicably oriented house take over in power, with Sylvanas Windrunner becoming the Queen of Quel'Thalas, with her husband being the last of Sunstrider dynasty and one of her supporters, Herandel Sunstrider. Soon after that, as a sign of friendship and loyalty, Quel'Thalas willingly joined Naruto's empire, and Sylvanas, elder sister, Illyria Windrunner, became his consort, one of his most trusted generals and before long, a mother to their son Kirin. And if there was something that Naruto had learned about Illyria, is that her loyalty and love towards him were undisputed, as well as the strength of her character. She looked at her husband without even giving away a single emotion on her beautiful face, until she spoke up. Imagine my horror and shock when I heard from ladies of the court that my husband, father to our son and my love, has been attacked and nearly made into a puppet of a foreign delegate. Leaving all of our belongings, I had my sister's mages teleport both of us here, and now I find you here, well and safe. Illyria blinked a couple of times to him, before she turned to the kids. Hima, why don't you show Kirin those flowers that you and Verisa had grew here? Your father and I need to talk about adult things. Himawari, though just about 10 years old, already knew that her father was in trouble and that it was best she and her brother didn't see it, so she led Kirin to the other side of the garden, safely away from his mother's righteous fury. Well, there goes my 2 best shields in the realm against Illyria's fury, Naruto mentally sighed, as he looked his wife in the eyes and spoke up. Illyria, my love, I know that you are angry with me and angry with you. Oh, my dear husband, I am not angry with you. I am more annoyed with your carelessness, for which you will have to answer later, but who I am really angry are those damned mongrels that had dared to attack you in such manner. Illyria finally showed her fury in display to Naruto, who took seemingly without flinching. Give me a single good reason why I should not take my bow and arrows and show them what it means to attack the Emperor and how you pay for it. The man responsible for it has been executed just half an hour ago, and as for the rest of delegates, they've been introduced to watchers and their interrogations, and as we both know, it is in many ways worse than death. Naruto assured Illyria, softly taking her hand into his. Illyria, I was careless, yes, and I am very sorry that I had you worried. But you know that there first be snow in Dorne before I became careless enough as to let them control me, especially with Semiramis, royal guards and all others protecting me. Although, to be fair, without you, my fiercest beauty, I do feel a bit more vulnerable. Naruto smiled to her, with Illyria proudly turning her head away, though with a bit of a blush on her cheeks. HMPH, of course you should feel that way, or have you forgotten who was it that saved you all those times during your eastern campaigns with ogres? Neji is good and all, but my rangers and I made sure that no assassin got close within 1,000 yards to you. Illyria reminded to him, with Naruto chuckling to her. Now, how do you compensate for all my worrying for you? Beware, that I, without even letting her finish, Naruto swiftly grabbed Illyria's waist and pulled her to him, their lips meeting each other. Though by all rules, Illyria should have been infuriated by this action, but deep down inside, she was mellowing at the touch of her husband and the affection. She was a high elf, a noble woman and a military one, but even so, she was a woman and extremely loyal to her husband. She could act with dignity, wounded pride and honor, but deep down, as they both knew, she had a soft and tender heart. Their relation might have began as just politics, but soon enough, their love bloomed and Illyria swore to protect it at all costs, as did Naruto. She didn't push away, but pulled closer, letting him hold her close to her and love her, as they closed their eyes in a loving and passionate kiss. Had they not been in gardens, but in their chambers, Illyria would not waste time and ravage her husband, but for now, this was enough after a month absence. Plus, the nights were starting to become longer. They had separated after the need of air become stronger, with Naruto looking lovingly at his consort and gently rubbing her cheek, Illyria taking that hand in her palm with a smile. I missed you, Illyria. Naruto admitted to her. Next time, we both will be going to Quel'Thala's. I hear it is beautiful in winter times. And warmer than Numenor. And I missed you too, my love. Illyria embraced her husband, who answered on this affection. I'm surprised that I found Himawari alone and saddened. She is usually with Demon in this time of day, with him tutoring her in literature. Is he away? He is. Demon and Urza had departed from Numenor to Dorne, having been invited by Doran, and after that he decided to find out what has happened with the payments from Westerosi kingdoms, since they are long overdue. He should be in King's Landing now. Naruto told her, with Illyria looking at him with a troubled look. Illyria, what is wrong? Naruto, while was at my sister's court, one of merchant captains came to the court and told that there is a civil war going on in Westerosi kingdoms. Naruto immediately widened his eyes at this one. According to him, House Lannister is invading Riverlands and that Lady Stark had taken one of Lannisters as a prisoner for something. The war is contained within Riverlands, but with Lannisters practically ruling the landing. Your Imperial Majesty, milady, pardon the interruption. Both Naruto and Illyria turned their heads and saw Arthur Dane standing before them. Her Imperial Majesty requests your immediate presence in the throne room. There is a guest from Westerosi kingdoms, wishing for an audience with you. Do you know who is this visitor, Sir Arthur? Naruto asked of him with the knight nodding. I do. He is one of the knights of the Aben Blade and Ned Stark's son, Jon Stark, whom you legitimized by your personal edict. Naruto remembered him well, as he had become a student to one of Naruto's closest friends among those knights, Jeor Mormont. In the West, with so many types of magic, Many orders and organizations have arisen to regulate their usages and to serve many other purposes. One of the eldest and most respected is the Order of the Ebon Blade, founded long before the days of the First Empire and even Westerosi kingdoms. This order had been created by first men, magi of North, local magical populace and even black dragons as to combat and defeat an extremely powerful enemy from the north of North, the White Walkers as they were known. Those creatures commanded the powers of the ice, wind, and death itself, raising literal hordes of dead as their armies, and determined to destroy the world of the Southerners for no apparent reason. Semiramis told Naruto that she had quickly recognized that threat and along with her dragons, she decided to give humans of Westeros a way to battle them, by teaching them a portion of the walkers' magical abilities and teaching them to fight them. And so was born the Order of the Ebon Blade for their black as night swords and the fact of them wearing black armor and clothing, and these men proved to be devastatingly effective against the walkers, and with the help of dragons, they were exterminated forever. After that had been done, Order had not disbanded, instead becoming defenders of the realm from magical threats, monsters and many other threats. In many ways, they were similar to Order of Argent Hand, to which Naruto was a member, but Knights of Ebon Blade used their own ways of magic and generally were neutral in squabbling of the kingdoms. Naruto, as the emperor, was a supporter of the order and greatly helped them, for which they pledged their allegiance to him. Still, to have a Knight of Ebon Blade so far down south was something really uncommon. And with what Illyria had told him just now, let's hear what he has to say. Naruto agreed, as he went towards the throne room. A few minutes later. Throne room. It didn't take long for Naruto to reach the throne room and take his seat next to Semiramis, who greeted him with a serious look. Naruto looked at Jon Stark, who hasn't changed much since he saw him last. Tall, long black hair, definite Stark features, dressed in black plated armor with furs and a sword strapped to his belt. Naruto spoke up to the young man, who knelt before him. A Knight of the Ebon Blade is always a welcome sight in Numenor. Rise, Esser. Naruto told him, with Jon standing up. Jon Stark, remember your father, Lord Eddard Stark, very well. An honorable and honest man, and a great warrior, according to Esser Arthur Dane and my Lord Commander of Royal Guard, Esser Barristan Selmy. I thank you for your kind words, your Imperial Majesty. My father has always spoken highly of you as well, and he wished to thank you for allowing me to be part of House Stark officially by your edict. It is a great honor you have shown to me. Jon bowed again to him, with Naruto smiling to him. You have shown yourself as a good warrior and honorable man during the Tournament of Unification a year ago. Managing to advance to 1/8 of the finales and even lasting one of the longest times against Lord Gabriel Windrunner is nothing short of most impressive in your age. Naruto commended the young man. There was little reason for me not to give you a status of a legitimate Stark with your qualities and accomplishments. Not to mention that the old Bear Mormont had vouched for you, and he is man with a good eye for good men. Now, Jon Stark, what brings you to our court and why have you requested an audience with us? Your Majesties, as you know, Order of the Ebon Blade is pledged to protecting the realm from inner and outer threats, be they magical or not. Knights of our order swear to be impartial to all lords and kingdoms and serve the greater good of all realms, free from politics and court games. Jon reminded to Naruto and Semiramis of it. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont had pledged the loyalty of our knights to you, as the man who serves the realm and protects it. And though we are impartial to wars of men, he believes that you must know what is going on in Westerosi kingdoms. My consort, Illyria Windrunner, has brought some troubling news about the rumors of a civil war going on out there, between Westerlands and Riverlands. Semiramis looked with troubled gaze in her husband. Tell us, are these rumors true or false, Jon Stark? I am sorry, your Imperial Majesty, but they are the reason why I traveled via teleport here south. These rumors are true. This confirmed the worst fears of Naruto and Semiramis. Some 3 weeks ago, Lady Catelyn Stark had abducted Lord Tyrion Lannister, accusing him of conspiring to kill my younger brother Brandon Stark. She had taken him to her sister to the Vale, and Lord Tywin Lannister called in the banners and marched to Riverlands. Along with that, my father, Lord Eddard Stark and King's Hand, was attacked and nearly killed by a Kingsguard, Jaime Lannister, who fled the city soon afterwards. The Kingslayer, a man without any honor or loyalty, except for himself and his family. Older voice of Barristan Selmy spoke up, drawing the attention of Emperor and Empress. Your Majesties, Arthur Dayne and I can confirm that it is something that he would do, as this man holds true only to himself. We will believe in your words, Lord Commander. Semiramis said to him, before she turned to Jon Stark. Sir Jon, if what you are saying is true, then why King Robert Baratheon hasn't taken any actions to prevent such chaos, and why have your father, Hand of the King, allowed this to happen? I am sorry, Your Imperial Majesty, but I hold no answers to that. All I know is that Tywin Lannister is ravaging the Riverlands and River Lords have been defeated in several battles. Soon enough, the North will come south to defend its allies, as will the Vale probably. Order of the Aben Blade will not take sides in this war, but Lord Commander wishes to spare the Westerosi kingdoms another destructive war, so he sent me here to tell you this and ask you to regulate this situation before it got out of control. Jon informed Naruto. He trusts that as the Lord Protector of Westerosi kingdoms, you will find the best solution to it all. We thank you for this valuable information, Sir Jon Stark. Stay and enjoy the hospitality of the capital, as our guest. Sir Alaric, show to Sir Jon the guest quarters. Said High Elf Royal Guard bowed and led young Northerner through the halls, while Naruto and Semiramis exchanged worried looks. Daemon is in the King's Landing, dealing with the small council and King Robert withholding from paying his debts. Naruto informed Semiramis, who nearly widened her eyes at this one. With Lannisters going at the Tullys, and Catelyn Stark holding that Lannister, the capital is going to become a powder keg, and our son is right in the middle of it all. He and Urza need to get out of there immediately. I have someone in the King's Landing, one of my younger sisters. I'll contact her immediately and tell her to get our boy out of there immediately. Semiramis immediately went out of the throne room, to make contact with her sister, while Naruto called to him his royal guards. Sir Arthur, inform High Lord Gabriel to assemble Marshal of North, Archmages of Dalaran, Admirals of Cool Tiras, Gilneas and of our 2nd and 5th fleets in the war room in an hour. The said man immediately left to find Emperor's Hand. Daemon, please be safe out there, and get me representatives from Lannister, Tully and Stark houses, and King's representative immediately. I'll have words with them all. Naruto wasn't going to let his own holdings in the North spiral down into a chaos. Meanwhile, King's Landing, throne room. Daemon had suspected that there would be some interesting things happening here and there in Westerosi kingdoms, but he most certainly did not expect nor plan to find himself in the middle of a political coup d'état, instigated by Lannisters, right after King Robert's death. And all had started out well enough. He managed to get his explanation and assurances of immediate payment from Eddard Stark, Hand of the King, and later on even dined with him. Oh, if only he had not done this, but then again, when a man as good and honorable as Ned Stark shares with you a secret about the royal family, whether you want or not, you become the part of Game of Thrones, so to speak. And the secret turned out to be that all of Robert's legitimate children were bastards of the Queen and her own twin brother. After a bit of thinking, investigation and throwing up at the very idea of it all, Daemon decided that with this all being the case, best course of action for him was to immediately go back home and inform his father about it all, plus there were genealogical evidences that Eddard Stark had provided. If only King Robert wasn't gutted by that damn boar and died on the same day, if only Daemon wasn't courteous enough to stay and offer condolences. Turns out, Westerosi kingdoms didn't exactly heard about the mourning the dead and traditions, as the very next day, which is today, Lord Stark had tried to seize the throne away from Lannisters, got stopped and put into black cells. And why was Daemon involved in all of this? Because he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, which were the throne room and right after the very dethroning attempt. And now he and Urza were surrounded by the Golden Cloaks, King's Guards and Lannister soldiers, with the Queen Regent speaking up to them. Your Imperial Highness, I hope you will forgive us this very unsightly scene. As you bore witness, Lord Eddard Stark has treacherously tried to seize the throne for himself from the rightful king. I am sure that when you write to your father and mother, this will be what you tell them, am I right? Cersei asked of him with a poison-laced voice, with Daemon responding to her. Pardon me, milady, but I believe all of us here have saw what really happened. You officially committed an act of treason by destroying the last will of King Robert Baratheon and not following. Attacked the king's hand and had essentially usurped the Iron Throne for your own. Daemon looked at the shaking in fury Joffrey and seething Cersei Lannister. And as Crown Prince of Numenor, I confirm that Ned Stark's words are true. Your son and all your other children are nothing more but result of your inbreeding with your own twin Jaime Lannister. The members of the court gasped when Crown Prince had so boldly proclaimed it all, with Cersei speaking up again. Careful with what you are saying, young prince. Right now, your very life depends on whether or not you decide to be cooperative or not with us. Half-dragons or not, you will either support my son's claim by writing a letter to your father, or we will be forced to inform him that Hand of the King, Ned Stark, had conspired with Lord Renly and Stannis to have the Crown Prince of Invaders murdered in his sleep. Cersei dropped all the formalities. I am sure that you will make the right choice and enjoy your prolonged stay in King's Landing in relative safety. Hoping to make me your hostage and use my father to win you this war. You can count me out of this scheme, because Dorne will freeze over 3 times and thaw out 3 times before a black dragon kneels before an inbreed and his inbreeding mother. Daemon stated without even showing any fear, before Joffrey rose up in anger and shouted. Kill him. Kill this bastard and his whore bitch. I want their heads on the spikes. Joffrey shouted in near psychotic scream, with Daemon simply smirking at him. You made a grave mistake, bastard. Daemon simply stated, as 3 of the Kingsguards began to close on him and Urza. Urza was ready to move to intercept them, but Daemon stopped her with his hand, before untied the sword of his belt, letting it drop on the floor. When Kingsguards saw it, they laughed at it, as the bravest, or the dumbest one, decided to take a swing at him and sent his sword right down on him. Too bad for him, he had not thought that even if Daemon was not a full-born dragon, he was still more dragon than all of Targaryens combined. Catching the sword with his left hand, clothing upon Daemon began to change into a plated and scaled armor of black color, covering him completely, made in a fashion of dragon scales, while in his right hand materialized a big black mace with 6 thick, long and sharp flanges. Easily moving away the caught blade, Daemon sends his weapon at the Kingsguard and in a single strike, literally destroys his head with his mace, splattering what remained of his head and helmet all over the throne room. Not missing a beat and grabbing his mace with both hands, Daemon quickly parries a slashing attack from another Kingsguard and smashes his mace on the side of his helmet, carving right through and crushing the head of the poor sod. The last Kingsguard, having seen this, was already backing away, but unfortunately for him, Daemon was faster, with his mace slashing at his legs, making fall down and cry out in pain, as his legs were destroyed utterly, before he was silenced by all 6 flanges piercing his skull. The throne room fell silent, until Daemon spoke up. When I was 3, my father had started to teach me how to wield a sword, but I turned out to be quite a bit clumsy for it. Always put too much strength into my swings and strikes, and with my blood, you can imagine the results. Daemon took his mace out of the skull of the poor dead Kingsguard. So, instead of teaching me how to wield a sword, he had my grandfather teaching me how to wield a hammer, in which I was much better, but still not fully my own weapon. Finally, on my 5th birthday, King of Dwarves has gifted me this mace. Made of the Aben Mithril, toughest metal in Mountains of Dwarves, this thing weighs about 45 kilograms, which is damn bloody heavy to carry with you, especially in armor like mine, even for me. But, half-dragons are damn fast learners and grow into such things really fast, and so did I. Demon simply stated to Joffrey and others, as he easily put his mace on his shoulder. So, who wants to have a taste it? The very next moments, City Watch and Lannister forces all got up in their arms and surrounded Demon and Urza, who by then had summoned up 2 swords and changed her attire into a one of resembling Valkyrie, with over 20 swords floating near her. In shock and awe, the guards miss their mark when Urza simply flies upwards and rains down her weapons. A slaughter ensues as her swords all reach their targets. Demon, who is now facing off against a dozen more guards, all standing between him and the result of incestuous relations that is Joffrey, decides to suddenly fall back, much closer to the doors. Urza descends down and takes up a guard near him, but he pushes her out of his way, speaking up. We need to get Eddard Stark and his kids. Without him, there isn't much evidence against Cersei and Lannisters, plus we need to keep the North in the fold. Demon explains to Urza, who looks at him with a near-shock expression, understanding what needs to be done. I'll cover for you and join shortly, you go and get them all. And leave all alone here with them. Are you mad? There is no way. Urza was about to argue, when she looked Demon in the eyes, his draconian eyes, realizing it wasn't up for the debate. Stay safe, my heart. With that she spearheads out of the throne room, with Demon simply smiling. As do you, my red angel. Demon puts his massive mace down, as Cersei speaks up. Your own lover has abandoned you now, dear prince. She must have realized that even with all the magic at her hands, she can't defeat the true king of Westeros. Cersei foolishly pointed out to him, with Demon simply chuckling with a smirk to her. There used to be just 2,000 gold cloaks, but after your father sacked the city, we have now over 15,000 of those and 5,000 soldiers of my father. Half-dragon or not, you can't possibly escape this city, and unless you wish to die in a glorious and foolish way, I suggest that you lay down your arms and accept our terms, Prince Demon. And once all of this foolish madness is done, you will be free to leave, with a good head and as a member of the Baratheon family through marriage. What? Me and that girl Marilla or whatever her name? Demon laughed openly at Cersei. Is this your great and mighty plan to win this war? To have me forcefully married to your inbreed of a daughter, and have my father march his armies against Tullys, Starks, Baratheons and all others, while you carefully plan the death of my father and mother, so that you could rule my father's empire through that girl? Is that what your plan is? Well, lady, let me tell you something. You have made the worst mistake in your life. I could say the same about you, having marched here like you own us all. A bastard of a dragon and some foreign refugee, with not an ounce of noble blood in him, and now you dare to parade yourself like a king. Cersei discarded all manner of politeness. The Targaryen dynasty was filled up by all manners of dragons, and where are they now? The dragons here in Westeros had died 100 years ago, which means they are not invincible, and you aren't even a full-blooded one at that. The Targaryens did not mate with any dragons and only the earlier members of them knew real magic. And as for those dragons you speak of, those were just Westerosi wyvern, a distinct and distant relative of a common wyvern, bred through magical experimentations by Aegon and his sisters, giving them the fire breath and somewhat closer appearance to dragons, but even they were but pale imitations of a true dragon. At those words, the air had suddenly began to become hotter, especially around Demon, as a strange glow traveled from his stomach and into his throat, as he smiled a vicious and draconian smile. Let me show you what a real dragon can do. And with that said, he jerked a little bit back with his frame, before he opened up his mouth and unleashed out of it a pure, destructive and massive wave of most powerful fire. Even if he was not a full-blooded and grown dragon, Demon was still a half-dragon, with blood of strongest black dragons running through him, as he was the son and grandson of 2 aspects of blacks, and he, according to his mother, had inherited his grandfather's extreme power in fire. And with a roar of a true dragon, He unleashed it on Lannisters and gold cloaks, instantly turning them and all that stood close to them to ashes. The flame's intensity was so great, that closest two stone pillars literally began to melt down with the floor. The direction of this breath was one of Joffrey and Cersei, who had managed only by the last second to get out of there, with some other more wise people. However, while they were safe, the Iron Throne of Westeros was not, as the black and rotting swords melted once again, and soon enough, the very seat and symbol of power for which almost all of Westerosi lords had strived for, was turned into a black, melted and steaming mess of destroyed steel. Daemon closed up his jaws as he saw that not only did he melt the Iron Throne, but he even burned through the wall behind it, creating a literal melted hole in the wall. Deciding not to linger any longer in the place, Daemon, being led by his dragon senses, left it and headed right towards where Urza would be. He could sense her presence closing in, and although there were more than a few interested persons to try and kill him, Daemon made sure they didn't via crushing them with his mace. After about 10 minutes of looking around and literally smashing his way through the guards, Daemon manages to find Urza, in her usual cloths, with Eddard Stark, his daughters, and someone he did not recognize. It was a woman in a red and violet dress, with long black hair and similar to his and his mother's golden eyes. But that was not what had made Daemon stop in his tracks, no. It was the very sense of this woman's power, which by his estimates, was just a couple steps below his mother's and dwarfed his own and Urza's power combined and tripled. Even though disguised, Daemon could clearly see one thing with this woman. She was a full-blooded and a mature dragon. She looked towards Daemon, smiling up to him. "Ah, Daemon, so good of you to get here. I was about to go fetch you myself, but then I ran into your mate here with Lord Eddard and his eldest daughter. She said that sent her to find them and little Arya, whom I took in after all hell broke loose here. Clever and wise, my dear nephew." She smiled to him as she spoke up, surprising Daemon. "Semiramis said that you were a very smart child, and she was not wrong in this statement. If you call me a nephew, then that would mean you are. Where are my manners?" The woman giggled almost playfully, before she made a curt bow to him. "Lady Catelyn Prestor, an aide to the official representative of Imperial Court in King's Landing on heraldic matters, but you may call me by my true name Onyxia." Daemon's and Urza's eyes widened when they heard that name. "I take it that you are also a dragon, Lady Catelyn." Eddard sighed, as now revealed dragon nodded to him. "Are you a relative to the crown of Numenor in any way?" "She most certainly is, Lord Stark." Urza spoke up. "Onyxia is one of younger sisters of Semiramis and is one of the strongest black dragons in the world. She is Daemon's aunt by all accounts, and is famous for her interest in blending in with mortal races and walking among them, especially among humans. What can I say? I have a certain fondness for mortals and their lives, as well as how they manage to do so much in such a short time span. Plus, it helps in maintaining world for cataclysms, so what is the harm in mixing up your work and hobby at the same time?" Onyxia turned to Daemon and spoke up to him. "I had suspected that there was a coup soon to be in place, but I did not expect things to escalate so fast. Had I known, I would have sent both you and your mate back in Empire as soon as possible, and now your mother has literally ordered me to do so. Someone from the Aben Blades has informed her and Naruto about the chaos going on in here, and she wants you tens of thousands of miles away from this hell." "Can't say I disagree, milady." Daemon stepped closer, as Onyxia began to cast up her spell, putting in Arya and Sansa. "Is this magic?" Sansa asked out loud. "Yeah, a teleportation spell. Are you taking us straight to Numenor?" Urza asked of her, with Onyxia nodding. "No sense in going in other places. And sorry, Lord Stark, but it is for the best you presented all of your evidences and words to the Emperor and my sister. After that, I can guarantee that you and your family will be safely returned back in Winterfell." Eddard decided to trust in words of Catelyn and nodded to her. "All right, my lord, girls. Since this is your first teleport, Don't be afraid if you feel a bit of a headache and nausea, all of that is normal after a teleport and during pregnancy, especially with the latter one. With this said, Onyxia teleported them all right out of the Red Keep and out of Westerosi kingdoms. Second Numenor Empire. Numenor City. Royal Imperial Palace. Your damned mountain Clegane has razed over 20 villages already, and the count of dead is going in hundreds. And now your brother and his Kingslayer's son with the army into our lands, and that blonde disappointment of a knight lays siege to my home castle. Shouted Lord Brynden Tully, known as Blackfish, and a brother to Lord Paramount of Riverlands. Had your niece not kidnapped Tyrion for whatever madness that had possessed her, there wouldn't have been a reason to begin this conflict. And let it not be forgotten that it was her husband that has given her the command to do so. Countered Kevin Lannister, brother to Tywin Lannister and his representative in Numenor. If Lady Catelyn Tully had not done that, there wouldn't be any reason for this war. Perhaps you need to go to the Vale and teach her some manners, Lord Blackfish. And does that justify the fact that your nephew had attacked my brother, Lord Kevin? Make no mistake, the North remembers, and we never forget those that had wronged us. Jaime had attacked the king's hand in broad daylight and had fled the city afterwards. I'm actually surprised that your brother hadn't had him in chains, said Benjen Stark, representative of the North and Starks. As far as I had heard, Lord Stark has discarded himself of that title right in front of Robert, and I can't exactly blame him. After all, it was the question of payment to the Emperor that caused the rift. Perhaps, had your brother not opted to surrender and continue on fighting, we would, casually and nearly without care spoke Renly Baratheon, representative of the Baratheon house and of the crown. Silence, roared the mighty and powerful voice of Naruto, who has had more than enough of their childlike squabbles. It had been just 15 minutes since they all arrived, and Naruto had already started to question why the hell those people had sent him these persons to represent them. Aside from that and their bickering, Naruto was resolute about ending their hostilities once and for all and return the peace in Westerosi kingdoms. With Robert Baratheon being unable to do so, it now falls to the Lord Protector of the Westerosi kingdoms to do this job for him, even if Naruto had not asked for it. Even if Naruto did not want to deal with this catastrophic mess, he was going to make it right and end all of these conflicts for good, but to do so, he needed to stop Tywin Lannister and his armies from ravaging the Riverlands, along with preventing Starks from entering the war on Tully's side. Naruto knew all too well that Tywin Lannister was not a man of half measures and that he was not someone to simply bow down before him just because of the command. No, that man was ruthless, calculating and powerful, devoid of any empathy and sympathy, left with the cold pragmatism and near-obsessive desire to strengthen the Lannisters' name and secure their legacy. He was feared, so much so, that no lord or of his equal would ever even think about opposing him, fearing for their life and with a good reason. As a ruler himself, Naruto knew that fear had its uses, but Tywin completely built his house and their prestige around a core concept of others fearing him, not House Lannister as a whole. When Tywin dies, House Lannister will be left without their main source of power, besides their gold, and when that happens, many will probably want to get their due from Lannisters for what Tywin did to them. And along with that, Naruto knew and understood that a ruler inspiring only fear will make himself more enemies than allies. Fear has a unique unifying effect on those that hold it towards someone, as Naruto had seen. Orcish clans, formerly bitter enemies to each other, united into the horde under the threat of ogres in Naruto's empire. Night elves, divided into simple night elves, who were practicing druidism, highborns, the practitioners of arcane magic, and nightborn, isolationists and former traitors to Night Elven Empire, had united together once more when the Empire of Navarra, a major enemy to Numenor, had invaded their lands. There were other instances, but the point was clear, and it seemed like Tywin didn't understand it. Fear is only effective for as long as your enemies do not understand that united, they can destroy you. And Emperor of Numenor wouldn't be surprised to soon find Lannisters surrounded by enemies from all sides. Still, while he would like to see Tywin Lannister humbled a second time, with the first time being the taking of Castle Rock, his castle, right from under him, Naruto needed to settle this mess as soon as possible, and the last thing he needed was these people literally ignoring him in favor of each other. Representatives, I thought I had summoned grown and educated men, not squabbling 5-year-olds. Naruto looked at them with accusation, shutting them all down. I have been well informed by Knight of the Ebon Blade and my spymaster about this entire situation already, but I have a question for you, Lord Renly. What the hell is your brother doing, by allowing his sworn lords run amok as they please? Your Imperial Majesty, my brother isn't exactly the best type for ruling. He is good in taking the thrones, much like you, but not exactly well suited to sit in one. Renly simply said to Naruto. His hand, John Aaron, was the one running the kingdoms for him, so if you want, you can blame him and Ned Stark for. Lord Renly, the faults of your brother are his own shortcomings, and the fact that he is the king and completely ignores his duties of ruling are his faults, and if you think that I will blame his scapegoats, so to speak, you are mistaken. Naruto simply stated to him. High Lord Gabriel Windrunner is the hand of the Emperor, yet none blames him for my own shortcomings and problems. No, you will direct your brother this message and warning. Start ruling the Westerosi kingdoms and deal with all of their trouble, or I will find someone more suited for this job instead of him. Your Imperial Majesty, you do not mean to. Renly was nearly shocked when he heard Naruto say such thing. I do not mean, Lord Renly. I make promises, and I am a man that always keeps them. Naruto reminded him and others of that. Should Robert Baratheon fail to uphold his duties and drives his kingdoms further into the abyss with his debaucheries and irresponsibility, I'll make sure that his successor knows what his duties are. Naruto assured him, before he turned to face Kevan Lannister and 2 other representatives. Milords, from where I see it, this entire conflict has started out because of Lady Catelyn Stark's accusations of House Lannister attempting to kill her son, and with her sister blaming them for death of Jon Arryn, along with later abduction of Tyrion Lannister. As the Lord Protector of the Westerosi kingdoms, such actions and will not be tolerated, but the accusations need to be verified. Lord Brynden, inform your niece, that she is to tomorrow leave the area and through teleportation come to Numenor City, to answer of her actions and present her accusations before the court. Tyrion Lannister to be released into custody of Knight of the Ebon Blade Jon Stark, accompanied by royal mages, who is the neutral party, will escort him under our protection. I will do so, but I warn you, Catelyn and Lisa can be very stubborn and headstrong in their decisions, especially Cat. Lord Brynden informed the Emperor. But that still doesn't stop Tywin Lannister and his armies from destroying the Riverlands. If she fails to do so, it will be considered as treason and betrayal of the crown. Make sure to give that message to her. Naruto assured the Blackfish, before turning to Lord Kevan. Lord Kevan, inform your brother, that he is to call off the siege of Riverrun and withdraw all of his forces from the Riverlands to the Golden Tooth Castle. He has 3 days to begin, and until the first day of the next month to complete the withdrawal. I officially call for the ceasefire in this conflict, and if any hostile actions will be taken by one side against another, the aggressors will be treated as rebels and traitors to the Empire and dealt with accordingly. As for the attack upon Lord Eddard Stark, Sir Jaime Lannister is also to be summoned to the court to face justice for his actions. And as for his enforcers Gregor Clegane, Amory Lorch and other noteworthy persons, make sure they are put on a leash, before their trial comes. And if your brother decides to ignore this order, as he is sometimes prone to do, I will be sure to send him my personal bard with a harp. He is not the only one who has a song dedicated to his actions. Lord Kevan and others understood what Naruto meant. I will be sure to inform him of your decision, your Imperial Majesty. Lord Kevan bowed to him. Lord Benjen, see to it that current Lord of Winterfell is informed of all this, and that any form of mobilization from the north, not directed to responding to any external threats, will be seen as a sign of a rebellion, in light of the ceasefire. His mother will be treated with respect a lady of her status deserves, but I will not look upon her lightly for her actions. Lord Benjen bowed to the Emperor, and they began to leave the room, until something no one expected had happened. Right in the middle of the throne room, in front of the representatives, opened up a magical portal. Guards and royal guards already took up arms, with Naruto standing up, but he called them to stand down, seeing who stepped out of there. From the portal appeared his son Demon, stepdaughter Urza, Lord Eddard Stark with his daughters and the black dragon that his wife had spoken of, Onyxia. Benjen looked with shock at his family members, while Naruto immediately went past his guards, followed by Lord Barristan Selmy and Neji, before he reached his son and looked closely at him. His armor and weapon were bloodied, smell of fire and burnt flesh present upon him, his mace was close to him and there was the feel of warrior before him. Naruto understood all too well what had happened. His son was attacked, and had faced his first combat. Without any words, he put his hand upon his son's shoulder and looked at him with pride and worry, before he spoke. Are you all right, Demon? Naruto barely contained his worry in the voice, but Demon knew his father was worried for him. Who dared to attack you and what had happened? Yes, father, though there was no lack in trying to see to it otherwise. Demon said to him, but, as your son, crown prince and your subject, it is my duty to report to you, that King Robert Baratheon is dead, and that House Lannister is now in open rebellion against the crown and empire. Naruto nearly widened his eyes, before Lord Kevin spoke up. Your Highness, there must be some kind of mistake. There is no way my niece. Your niece and her son had threatened and attempted to kill me with Urza just 20 minutes ago. Not only that, but she had all but confessed of murder of her husband. And if that wasn't enough, all of her children are not even true Baratheons and are inbreeds of her and her own twin brother, Jaime Lannister. Everyone, save for the arrived party, looked shocked at this information. Hell, she wanted to use me as a hostage to gain power of my father's armies and even thought of marrying her daughter to me. It would not surprise if she even thought of removing my parents from life, to usurp the throne through her daughter. Your Majesty, such accusations are. You will keep quiet, Lord Kevin, or I will make your quiet. Naruto shut him up immediately, before he turned to see Ned Stark and nodded to him. Lord Stark, I hope that you will shed some light about this entire mess. As for your daughters, they are welcomed here at court and I will see them settled in guest rooms momentarily, next to their brother and your son, Jon Stark. Ned nodded to him and turned to look at Onyxia. Onyxia, whatever the reason for you stayed in King's Landing, you have my eternal gratitude for bringing my children back home with our loyal subjects safely. No need for formalities, dear brother. I could never leave my own blood and his mate in clutches of that snake. And as for what has happened in King's Landing just now and what your son had said, all of that and more is truth. Onyxia assured him, with Naruto gripping up his sword, as he turned to his son. You and Lord Stark will tell me everything. Urza, my sweet firebird, I am glad to see you well. Your mother will be happy to see you, as will Semiramis to see you, Demon. Naruto assured of them, before he led them out of the throne room, but not before saying the final piece. Representative of Lannisters is to remain in here and is not allowed to leave the throne room until further notice. Any and all tries to do so are to be stopped with force if need be. Lord Renly, Benjen and Blackfish, come with me. War Council Room. 3 hours later. It had taken less than an hour for Naruto's generals and admirals to assemble, along with additional members tuning in through the magical means and partaking in this business. Rulers of Quel'Thalas, Sylvanas Windrunner, a near copy of her older sister, though a bit younger, and her husband Harandel, a tall and strongly built elven paladin in crimson-red armor with short spiky blonde hair. Along with them stood Tyrande Whisperwind, a tall night elf high priestess in a white dress and green hair, and Malfurion Stormrage, an archdruid of night elves, with long green beard and green mane and tattoos adorning his strongly built torso, speaking for night elves. King Jen Greymane of Gilneas, an older man with a literal gray mane and beard, but strong and fit as ever, has joined in this conversation from afar via magical transmission, with others doing the same. Along with Gabriel Windrunner, Verisa, Illyria and Hanabi, there were also Lord Admiral Dalen Proudmoore, a tall brown-haired man in admiral coat and saber, who led the island kingdom of Cool Tiras. Next to him stood Tyrion Fordring, one of the oldest paladins, with long gray hair and beard alive and one of the most trusted men of Naruto, Marshal of North in white and golden armor, having teleported here with his friend Dalen. Next to them stood Archmage Jaina Proudmoore, daughter of Dalen Proudmoore, leader of Kirin Tor and Dalaran, as well as Naruto's consort. They stood the closest to Naruto, Semiramis and Demon with Onyxia, as Gabriel had spoken up. You all have heard what Ned Stark just said to us. Cersei Lannister had fornicated with her own brother and now have staged a coup against Robert Baratheon. And her son openly had attacked and tried to have the crown prince killed, right where the treachery was committed. Gabriel summarized it all to everyone. House Lannister may not be completely involved with this treachery, but Tywin Lannister will not stand idle and let this chance of seizing power slip away. Whether we like it or not, Westerosi king is dead, and a usurper sits on his throne, while country is in civil war. He and Lannisters will not settle on a ceasefire now, we need to take actions now. Gabriel said simply, as he looked at Naruto and spoke again. I hate to tell you this, and I hate it even more to be right in these things, but I have warned you that keeping that boar in power was going to lead those kingdoms down to civil war. We needed to have dethroned him right then and there, when he bent the knee before you. Yes, and I now see that it would have been the right decision, Gabriel. However, back then there were none whom we could trust this job and not fail us in it and keeping the peace there. Naruto simply stated to him, as he looked at the great map of the continent and Westeros, united. Starks do not belong in the south of the neck with their high regards for honor and morale. Martells are not suited for King's Landing and not Dorne land. Lannisters were already in power there and Tywin Lannister would never remain under the heel of someone else. Arryns are isolationists and hardly care for others, with Jon Arryn being the exception. Tullys are unable to even hold control over their own bannermen at times, much less the whole Five Kingdoms. Tyrells would not be able to stabilize the Westerlands and Riverlands with North, especially with Tywin Lannister. And as for Targaryens and what remains of them, do you really see people of Westeros accepting a daughter of the Mad King, which nearly destroyed their kingdoms? Yeah, I see your point. Gabriel agreed with Naruto. Anyway, it is too late for us to change that decision, but we need to take care of this problem immediately. High Lord Tyrion Fordring, what is the status of our forces on the border with Crownlands, Stormlands and Westerlands? We have 6 legions stationed there, with 4 of them in Reach and 2 in Dorne, which is 81,000 soldiers ready. The levies that Reach and Dorne can contribute to them amount to over additional 90,000 soldiers, with reserve forces of 40,000 in Reach and 30,000 in Dorne, but they all will take time to assemble and be ready for battles. I have 300 mages and 229 paladins under my command, along with 360 pieces of artillery spread evenly among the legions. There are also additional 2 legions in Lordaeron and Angmar to call upon if need be. Tyrion laid it all down to them, before he turned to the map. 6th and 7th legions are at Westerland's borders close to sea, with 8th close to Bitterbridge and 9th stationed at Ashford. 10th and 11th are stationed in northern part of Dornish Marches, which was added to Dorne after our last war. With the disposition of our forces, we can easily march on Stormlands and take them, if they swear fealty to Joffrey, or we can use them to march them into King's Landing immediately. Demon summarized, before his father spoke up. An accurate analysis, but not a complete one, son. Naruto looked at him before he looked at the map. Tywin is not an idiot, and he knows that with Empire taking up arms, he will need to be ready to defend himself. He'll probably pull back his one army back to Westerlands, while the other army will possibly march towards King's Landing to reinforce it. River lords will not be able to harm them until they muster up forces, and Starks will need at least 2 months to even reach the Red Fork River past the neck. Our forces will be the only ones facing Tywin and his armies, and if he sees that the borders to the Reach are weakened, he can strike first and break through the defenses, with the 8th and 9th legions unable to reinforce the 6th and 7th in time, if they are in King's Landing, besieging it. Naruto looked at his son again. A good general uses the faster way to win a battle only if it is the assured one of victory, demon. Remember it well. Still, he has a good point. Sylvanas spoke up. I recall that Crownlands can muster up to 35,000 soldiers combined, and I doubt anyone will support Cersei and Joffrey in Stormlands. Those 4 legions with additional levies for Dorne and Stormlands can very well take King's Landing. Quel'Thalas will be able to supply the fleet of 240 war galleys to this if need be, along with our Ranger Corps and Silvermoon army, so you can expect additional 40,000 strong. You may want to forget about Stormlands, since aside from marches, you won't get much support from others. Onyxia spoke up. I have been at court and in kingdoms long enough, and I know that Renly has been plotting and scheming to gain power in Stormlands. With Stannis long dead after Ironfield, he is the prime candidate for the throne, and he is more than willing to take the throne. He sees himself as the king and will more than likely do anything to get the Iron Throne, or whatever new seat they use. And I would watch out for Tyrells, since he was getting very friendly with them as of late. You think Mace Tyrell would be willing to support Renly to the throne, Onyxia? Without us knowing about it all? Semiramis asked of her. Positive, the great oaf of Highgarden really wants his daughter Marjorie to be queen, and he would be willing to commit this little act of treason. But, while Renly is the prime candidate for the throne now, trusting him to run the kingdoms is foolish. He is arrogant, vain, and simply wants to the throne because he thinks he will do better as king than his brother did. Onyxia informed them all, and considering that he is a sword swallower, so to speak, I doubt he will be very popular among the nobles and common people. What Westeros needs is a ruler with will of iron, but also one with the ability to hold those warring states together not just through brute force, but also through earning their loyalty, justice, and ability to make the lands prosperous. You may even consider someone outside of Westeros, if you want, and have him marry someone of great family. Onyxia advised, with Naruto and Semiramis sharing a look together, before he spoke up. The matter of ruling will be settled later, and it won't be a Baratheon for sure. They have proven themselves incompetent enough. For now, we need to determine our next move, and that is securing Westerlands and Tywin's own castle of Castle Rock. Naruto determined. Tyrion, move the 8th Legion to the 6th with 7th and begin the march upon Westerlands from the south. Bring up forces from Angmar and Lordaeron to fill in gap in defenses and begin raising levies of Reach and Dorne. First targets are Crakehall, Cornfield and Silverpine, with major focus on Crakehall, as it will open the road to Castle Rock. The 9th Legion will block the road between the Westerlands and Crownlands, aided by the levies of Reach and Legion from Lordaeron. As for Stormlands, while Renly forms up his ranks, move the 10th and 11th to Kingswood and fortify positions there, joined by Stormlands, levies and Angmar's Legion. This will serve as an immediate threat to King's Landing, and if they decide to reinforce Tywin, we will use those forces to strike at either the army or the capital itself later on, but for now, it will be our assurance and vanguard. Sylvanas, you will send 15,000 of your forces there as well, while the rest will join in attack of Westerlands. The fleet will be joined with my 5th Fleet and block the landing. Main focus of first campaign is Castle Rock and House Lannister's lands. Cut off the main supporters from the King's Landing and take the real ruler of kingdoms, while also blocking his support. Good plan. Jen approved of this plan. In the long run, Tywin knows he is beat, so he will most certainly try to take Tyrion's forces while he still can, so you be ready for that, Marshal. I can spare 25,000 of my forces to this with only 60 ships of my own, if you plan on blockading the Lannisport. Those forces will be needed to Tyrion, Jen, but your fleet best stay where it is, as is the case for Reach's fleet. Naruto told them, before he turned to Dalen Proudmoore. Tell me, Lord Admiral, during the wars on the mainland, who was always the first one to exploit the absence of armies and lords in their castles and lands? The Ironborn. Those raiders and sea-salted scumbags will more than likely take their chances and loot out all the castles and lands close to sea. Dalen understood what Naruto meant by that question. When Balin catches wind that Starks have left for war, he'll raid the hell out of North, or he can turn to the Westerlands and Riverlands, not to mention Reach and all the southern western lands, including Gilneas and Ashenvale Dominion. Our western fleet is still in the process of refitting, so there is no way we will be able to supply it to you. Tyrande spoke up to Naruto. We can send a force of 60,000 to your aid, but we will need to fill in the gaps in our defenses from the sea. Our second fleet is anchored at Greyrock, so it can be used as a screening force for our caravans and shore lines, adding up to the local squadrons and fleets. Demon raised his voice again. At the same time, Lord Dalen's first and second fleet move out to the north and blockade the Lannisport, or the Iron Isle, with our sixth fleet moving in support. That way, we will be able to respond to any threats from the Ironborn, and if the Starks keep a large reserve in the north, Ironborn won't be able to attack the north. The assembled leaders here listened to what Demon had said, and then Naruto chuckled and spoke up. Looks like my plans aren't as secretive as they may seem, Naruto said out loud. This is the right thinking, Demon, and it correlates with my own. Tyrande, I will need only 20,000 of your forces in the north, with some of the druids in the mix from Malfurion. We will also need additional siege engines and artillery, so we will make arrangements with Magni Bronzebeard in Steelhorn, in person. Demon, you will take care of this important assignment for me. He favors you greatly, and while his loyalty is beyond absolute, best if Crown Prince takes this assignment and presents it to him. It will show the importance of this matter. I'll depart first thing in the morning with Urza. Demon nodded to him and went on ahead to start packing again. My druid will be able to come and help over. I will also send our best healers to the forces. Malfurion assured them. Kirin Tor will provide the forces with additional mages and conjurers, as well as open up additional teleports and portals for the supply routes and transportation of the injured. Jaina assured them all. Along with that, the Violet Guard, 16,000 strong, will be ready for the deployment shortly. They can be served to bolster up the forces near King's Landing, since even with forces of Sylvanas there, those legions may not be enough to pose a significant enough threat, especially if they amass their forces for the strike. Gabriel suggested, with Naruto accepting it with the nod. Until the levies of Renly, Dorne and Reach are ready, we will be stretched a bit thin in terms of manpower. Maybe River Lords can buy us some time by keeping Lannisters occupied for a bit at Golden Tooth, provided his lifts his siege of Riverrun. He will have to now, or he risks losing both his Castle Rock and King's Landing to our forces. Illyria analyzed. He'll probably take command of King's Landing forces, since he is closest to it, while his son will go to Golden Tooth with his forces. And there is no hope for him taking Riverrun by attacking, since it's a literal island fortress in the middle of a river. Once the siege is lifted, the River Lords will be glad to return the favor to him tenfold, so it will buy us time need to assemble forces and strike. And from the past campaign, we know that taking Crakehall is imperative, before it is reinforces by Lannisters. Verisa added up. Now, if this all is decided, all that remains is to determine whether or not the Emperor will. Gabriel was about to bring this subject up, but Naruto was already ahead of him. I will lead our forces to Westerlands personally, so I will be joining and leading the army. Naruto said his piece, though all knew it well. Semiramis, the Empire will be on you while I am away. Illyria will be commanding the forces in Kingswood, while the force blocking Westerlands and King's Landing will be led by you, Gabriel. All of them nodded, knowing it was the obvious choice for the command. And once we take the Westerlands, we will march upon the King's Landing and take it for good. Cersei and Lannisters may believe themselves to be supreme and superior to all, but it is time to show them that not just they pay for their debts. I will not rest until the very sigil of their house is burned away with all their treacherous members and even a notion of rebellion. Joffrey may fashion himself as the ruler, but all he is just a product of incest and a bastard with a mind of spoiled psychotic child. We will restore justice and order in Westerosi kingdoms for good. You are all free. All of the magical holograms and people had left the room, going where they needed to go first, until only Semiramis and Naruto remained in the room. You do not approve, do you? No, I do approve this, even if I do not like to part away from you again, my love. Semiramis sighed to him. This war, it will not be over, till the birth of our daughter, right? No, most probably. Naruto admitted to his wife with a tired sigh. Even if Tyrion will be in our custody, Tywin will not bend the knee, I know it. He still has not forgotten how I took Castle Rock the first time and humiliated him. And now, he has only death if he submits, and he knows it. But that is for me to worry about. You best worry about Konaha and Hai no Kuni, Semiramis. They won't sit down idly, no sir they won't. I will keep an eye out for them, but still, make sure to be back as soon as possible. Girls and I will miss you terribly, and children as well won't be able to part with you for long. Semiramis smiled to him, with Naruto smiling back to her. You plan for Demon to also take part in this war. He already had tasted blood and steel, and he did well. And if he is to rule, he needs to learn how to fight a war and battles alongside his soldiers, as I have done before him. Naruto reasoned. I need to decide where to place him, although. Best place is with Illyria, near the King's Landing, close to a vital position, away from most immediate dangers and tutorage from your best generals. Semiramis argued. While he may be good with you, but he needs to have independence as well, plus he may need to learn that patience in war is also vital, as is the boldness. You are right on that part, Semiramis, Naruto agreed with her. Onyxia and Gabriel are right. Westeros will need a powerful and strong leader, loyal enough to keep it in the fold, and respected and loved enough to keep the kingdoms from destroying each other. And in Westeros, there aren't many who can do it. Perhaps, it really is time to find someone best suited for it outside of it and connect him with Westerosi kingdoms through a marriage. Possibly, but in any event, it might just be the best solution. Semiramis did agree with him. Any good candidates for this role? Only one comes to mind, and I am not yet sure whether you and I will like that very much, Naruto admitted to his wife.